Okay, hey class, I'm back at the bottom of the video. I'm back at the bottom of the video. All right, so finishing up our natural fibers, we're going to talk about leather and fur. And leather is the most sought after of leather and fur. It's two of the most sought after and glamorous textiles that they are. And they're also two of the oldest. So we've talked about cotton and linen and wool to that extent, and how in prehistoric people they learned a method to spin and weave those textiles. But actually, leather and fur came even before then because they just essentially saw that the animals that they killed for food, that they could use their skins for another purpose. And obviously it was providing them with warmth and protection from the elements. And today leather and fur is vital, not just to the apparel industry, but to the automotive industry and home furnishings and the raw materials for coats and jackets and shoes and handbags and gloves and a wide range of fashion products. Now, in this, we also will talk a little bit about vegan leather and faux fur because there are some sustainability issues with more importantly, the processing of leather, and some of the ethical issues that are surrounding fur. So we will cover those as well. The leather industry is currently expanding its market in ways that nobody could even have dreamt of 50 years ago, let alone maybe 10 years ago. And there are new processing methods that are in place that have created leather so thin and supple that leather has what we call in textile, it has drape in hand, right? So hand, it's soft, super soft to the touch, and drape, it has some fluidity to it. It's a movement. And those really thin leathers are being used in ways that leather normally isn't used. So bikinis, right? Who wants a leather bikini? If you had the right leather, you would. And evening wear, all available in an array of colors. And in part because of some of the environmental concerns over the use of, especially of rare animal skins. When we get to it, furs are making a comeback as well, especially with the young first-time customer. But the demand for fur has never been greater, with also the invention of really great faux furs that mimic the hand and feel of a regular fur, even though it did not come from an animal. The leather industry is leather industry and leather making is a highly specialized and time-consuming operation, and often not because of the time that's involved. Leather producers, manufacturers, they have to have a crystal ball, really, to anticipate, predict trends far, far in the future. If leather suddenly becomes trendy again, right? They have to make sure that they have the stores of the raw materials to make those garments. So, leather producers typically decide what their production method is and how much they're willing to store. And they do have a much longer lead time than than traditional natural fiber textiles, because those can be stored in a natural state, ready to be spun and woven. Whereas for leather, and then we get to fur as well, those raw materials are not as easily harvested, and they're not as easily stored as well in bulk. So, and since leather is it's really a byproduct of the meatpacking industry, it's not as much of a target for animal rights activists as the use of fur. Generally, most leather is a byproduct of the cattle or the sheep and lamb meat industry. There's some other leathers we'll talk about there, and we'll talk about in a second. Few animals are raised specifically just for their hide. There's always an exception, right? So of course, with some of the exotic leathers, like elephant or ostrich or alligator, crocodile, those generally are more exotic. But since most leather in the leather industry is a byproduct, there's not as much of a animal rights concern. There are some sustainability and some environmental concerns that we'll talk about in a second, but the target is not on the leather industry as it is with the fur industry. The process for transforming animal skins into leather is known as tanning, and the word actually comes from a Latin word for oak bark, which was what was used to treat early animal skins, to remove the hair from the actual skin itself. And tanning is actually one of the oldest known processes in the world. And, it's a longer process. It could take between 3 and 6 months to complete the entire process of removing the hide or skin from the animal until it's ready to be transformed into an actual process. The tanning method also has some environmental concerns because of the chemicals that are used. There are mineral tans that are used using chrome salts. There's a whole host of manufactured chemicals that are used in the tanning process to remove any imperfections and any hair still attached to the skin from the skin. So there's vegetable tanning. There's a lot of different processes. The tanning can be done through the use of oils, but the most widely used and quickest method is actually to use formaldehyde, which, if you don't know, formaldehyde is a chemical compound that can be corrosive. That's probably the best way to explain it. But it also can create a lot of byproducts of wastewater, and those are some of the sustainability issues that are the biggest concern in processing leather. In addition to the tanning method, there's also the finishing, and the finishing process, gives leather its desired thickness or color or aesthetic. So the feel that we want it to have. We hear pebble leather or metallic leather or suede or patent leather. Those are all finishing process. Leather can be dyed, sometimes with oils, sometimes with fats to ensure softness, sometimes with finishing agents that improve waterproofing, things that make it matte or luster or pearl or metallic. And what's really important for you to know is that suede is actually not a type of leather. It is actually a finish that is put on leather to make it have that feel. So it's actually stripping away the top layers of the skin in order to make a suede product. So what are some of the challenges and trends for the leather industry? And really up until a few years ago, a few decades ago actually, the trend in leather was just to meet customer needs, to figure out what the customer wants and fill that niche. So shoes, handbags, gloves, luggage, period. And essentially these were, stiff, bulky items, right? And now the trend in leather is, soft, supple, thin. I talked about it a few slides ago. You need to have hand or drape for it to really have the same personalities of an actual fabric. And the reason that has happened, number one, is the increase in competition from synthetics. So vegan leather, right? Leather that did not come from the hide of some animal that was manufactured, that was chemical, manufactured synthetic leather, right? Vegan leather. Those items are made to feel like regular fabrics, and the leather industry saw its grasp slipping away, and they wanted to be able to have their natural fabric mimic some of these synthetic fabrics. The growth in increased foreign trade, right? So those industry growth factors, and some of that includes the move for emerging economies to want to mimic what they see first world countries doing. So, that classic elegant look with an emphasis on quality, is one of the things that has increased the leather trade, so that countries that traditionally don't produce their own leather, or their citizenry doesn't wear a lot of leather goods, has changed just based on the global world, the global economy that we live in now, where we are all dependent on each other, and as a result, we have a lot of intercultural exchange, right? And last but not least, it's the first point on here, but it's the last thing we'll talk about. It's just that enlarging markets, just the ability for tanners to make leather more soft and pliable. That leather can be dyed in more than 500 colors now. So, dig into that Pantone color wheel. There's more colors that leather could be dyed with. Traditional leather was black, brown, maybe navy, maybe gray. Improved cleaning techniques. Leather traditionally was a dry clean only garment. I mean, you may be able to spot clean some leathers, but in order to get really deep clean, you had to dry clean it. So all of those advancements in leather has helped the industry overall.